Hi, Dr. Lamb. Abby Whitecamp here with my Lesson 13 Alternate Assignment video. For this video and assignment, I am choosing to delve a little bit deeper into power, um, just like you used as the example in our PDF document for this alternate assignment. And so I guess I can just start with how Folger, Poole, and Stutman define power, which they define it as the ability to influence or control events. And that definition can be found on page 143. But of course, that definition is, like they say, more general. And I fully agree when they say that their more specific definition of power is that it's relational. Um, and I definitely agree that it is relational and that it only exists because of interactions between others. Obviously, this concept of power that they are talking about in this case is very different from the physics concept of power when you're talking about force and, how things go from point A to point B. That kind of power is definitely different than the concept that the authors are talking about here. So why is this still so hard for other people and me? That's definitely a good question. I want to sort of delve into reasons for other people, reasons for me, and a reason for both of us. So I guess for me, I'll start. My first reason for why people and I still struggle with the concept of power, especially in conflict interactions, is really succinctly put by a quote that I found in the textbook that says, because power is inherently relational, it is never entirely under one's control. And that quote is from page 149. And to me, this makes a lot of sense because, I struggle with the concept of power and how to manage it because it is not at any point in time fully under my control. I'm a type A person, I like to plan, and I like to know the outcome of almost any situation, which is unrealistic if you think about it, but I like to, for lack of better words, control what that outcome will be, and I like to have that power to do so. So the concept of power and working with it, especially in interactions with others, that's really difficult for me because I like to manage it myself. Another reason, more on the rebellious side of me, is that some positions of authority are threatening to me. I don't like to feel tied down in the sense that I can't make my own decisions or I can't choose that outcome, kind of like I just touched on. That, of course, might not apply to other people, but for me, it is something that I do struggle with. And now for something more towards other people, I would say people still struggle with this because of possible damages to relationships. So, for instance, I thought of a hypothetical situation, I guess, where you have a group of employees and a boss, and they're trying to decide at the end of the year a specific amount of money, where they want this specific amount of money to go. So which they're trying to pick charities for this specific amount of money at the end of the year to go to. And so, for instance, you'd have a couple employees say they wanted to go to the American Heart Association, and some other people wanted to go to Caring for Canines, and etc. And then the boss is the person who makes the ultimate decision. Since there isn't a consensus, there is going to be parties that are unhappy with the decision if their choice wasn't chosen. So even though, this power is being enacted in a beneficial way because they're giving money to a charity, it still has the potential to disrupt and damage the relationship between the boss and the employees who feel bad that their choice for the charity wasn't chosen. And then a reason that I think applies to other people as well as more specifically myself is that Folger, Poole, and Stutman talk about what's called relational messages, and they define those as, or they define a relational message as a verbal expression that indicates how people regard each other or their relationship. And this is found on page 156. I would say that relational messages, they also make it a little bit difficult and contribute to the struggling of myself with this concept or other people, because these relational messages, since they are implicit, they can therefore become manipulative. And the authors go into a little bit of detail about that, how you can have hidden agendas and everything like that, and people trying to enforce their will and use their power, making threats and promises. So I think for that reason, even if the relational messages can be good, they can also be bad, which can be difficult to balance. So a specific way that I felt as though I can improve in this area of trying to better manage power and my power relationship, or lack thereof, with other people in conflict interactions, is trying to use what the authors call sharing power. For some reason, I have this innate feeling that if I give up or share any power, that I somehow lose all of my power. Now, of course, in the logical part of my brain, I know that that is definitely not true. That's definitely not the case. But in the feelings part of my brain, that is still somewhat of a truth for me. And so it's hard for me to share that power. So in order to do this, in order to get better at this, I definitely feel as though adopting more of a collaborative approach to these conflict interactions is definitely going to be more helpful than my dominant competing approach that I typically take on because I'm just trying to defend myself. So for sharing power and trying to make the other parties feel as though they also have a say just as much as I do, and they also have the right, just like I do, to control the outcome. I think doing that will lead me to have some better conflict interactions and hopefully avoid conflict altogether. All right, I think that's it for this video. Thanks a lot.